Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jo, and this is your listen in how to guide to the Australian financial and real estate market. On today's show, I have a very special guest, Jake Crea from Victorian Removals, and he's got such an interesting background in how he got into the removal business. I've been really pumped up to have a chat to you, Jake, so thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, Jo.
Of course. And look, the way I like to do these sessions is I love to get into it with the first question because I know our listeners are eager to understand more about you. And especially, I know you've got quite a big background from where you've come from. So, right into my first question here is how did you get into the furniture removal business and what motivates you, I guess, in this space to give great customer service, or how did you get started?
Yeah, so I got into the furniture removal industry when I was very young, 18 actually. So I believe I've been through many scenarios now um, that were extreme and difficult, and I'm able to provide a great service with excellent customer service. Obviously, having that experience helps a lot.
Yeah, wow, that's really young. What was it, kind of like a family driven thing, or was it just something that you had an interest in and you thought, oh, I'm going to get into this?
Yeah, look, it was it was something I got into just some casual work. Um, and then I had a like for it where I just kept going, and I was obviously working for someone else at the time,
Mm.
and then I ended up getting my a truck license a year after. So I started to like the work and just had a real passion for it. And then obviously after becoming a driver, I set myself a goal one day to own a truck of my own and then start my own business. And yeah, that's what I set off and have been able to do.
That's excellent. I think it's a cool story with how to, being at a young age, often that those jobs that we call temporary at the time, you don't really get a taste. Like once you get a taste for it, that's when you start to think, oh, I could actually do this full time. I could see myself doing this for 10 years. I really like it.
Yeah,
That was just a fluke. A lot of people don't know what they want to do straight after school or, if they leave school early. So, kudos to
exactly right.
you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jo. Yeah, you're spot on.
But no, and look, I think part of this removal business, you obviously travel far and wide in some cases. And I'm curious to know, in terms of your serviceability, how far and wide do you travel when it comes to, where customers need you to be?
Yeah, look, we operate all through Victoria, so we do a lot of local jobs in and around Melbourne, whether they're bad access in the CBD, high-rise apartments, or we can do country Victoria jobs where we go out to, all places like Albury, Echuca, Colac,
Oh, geez.
Warrnambool. So we cover all of Victoria. One thing people don't know is that we also do interstate. So we can also do interstate moves. We accommodate moves going up to Queensland. That's
Wow.
quite a popular move from Melbourne. So a lot of people going up to Queensland, Sydney, Adelaide. Yeah, we do interstate as well.
Oh, that's excellent because yeah, you're right. There is a lot of moves, especially since COVID hit. I think a lot of people did the move to Queensland from Victoria. So I can imagine you would have been a
Yeah,
bit busy in that period.
very popular move, the Queensland move.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it brings me to my other questions around services. How does the service typically work with you guys in the way that, a lot of people, if I gave you a scenario, someone who's just bought a family home, and they need to move everything out of their apartment or out of their home, if they've got like a lot of stuff that either has to go to storage, but then part of it's got to go into obviously the property, what's the general process that you follow with customers, or what journey do they go on at settlement?
Yeah, so how it starts is it starts with an inquiry, and then after that, it's obviously just the good communication between my team, myself, and the customer. So we figure out whether the client would need packing or if they require a packing, um, pre-packing for their home, their kitchen, whether they need materials. If they want to handle that on their own, that's entirely up to them. If they want that extra option, we provide that. Um, So as long as they're all packed up, ready to go on move day, we can accommodate for any scenario, like split loads. Say half a load, they're downsizing and it's a 4 bedroom home, and they're going to go into a 2 bedroom home, and
Mm.
half of the stuff is going to storage. So we can accommodate difficult moves like that, where half goes to storage and half goes to a house. Um, yeah, we're able to do something like that.
I think that's it's important, especially the pre-packing stuff. I know I hate moving, personally. I think that was the worst thing I did. I actually drove my own trailer, and I've never driven a trailer before, so that says everything you need to know. Who shouldn't be doing that? And I think I always thought I wish I had someone to move my stuff for me. I should have engaged that earlier. And then the second time round, we did, and it was so much easier. I think it just relieved a lot of that stress that I had about the packing of especially the delicate items that we had. There was, what did we have? It was a piano that I wanted to move. Oh, total nightmare. And
Yeah, some
yeah,
people like to DIY it themselves, and then they don't realize once it's too late, they can either injure themselves, or most often than not, people cause damage to their own furniture or houses. So that's where, my point of difference especially is the care we take for people's furniture. Um, we just take that extra care compared to a lot of others, where we'll come in and make sure everything goes as efficient as possible, with no damage to your furniture or the house you're moving out of or into.
no,
And that is a really big difference with my company.
and I think that's so important because a lot of the time, I know from friends that have, hired some removalists in the past, yeah, they don't take that extra level of care. They end up with either the property's damaged, like scraping of the walls. But I even experienced a little bit of that, like when we had furniture delivered, to the new place and they were moving it in and the banging up of walls or the tight spaces. And it was so
Yeah,
frustrating, but you can't,
exactly right.
it was like, what do? You can't say to them, hey, you want to fix the scuff? It's kind of like,
Yeah,
oh, damage is
you just
done.
gotta you just gotta make sure everyone does their research on who they're getting, and yeah, that's a big point of difference with my company. We really provide that extra bit of care,
No,
and
that's excellent.
that's a big one for me because that's part of my philosophy, really.
No, that's excellent. And I love that you take that much care with it because people's belongings, like they're our treasures, to everyone else it might not be as important, but when it's your own things, it's no, it's so valuable.
Exactly, exactly right. Because if you put it this way, it's what people have worked hard for their whole lives. It's their furniture, and
Yeah,
yeah, that's why it's so important to me.
it's true. I love that outlook. And in terms of what customers can do, I guess, to get prepared for moving, right? So I have two questions here. When's the best time to engage your services in terms of planning? So like if they're, let's say they've just got their property now, they have a settlement date in mind. When do you find the optimal time is to start that move? Because often people get a bit stressed when it comes to
Yeah,
settlement day
that's right.
itself, if it doesn't
Exactly.
settle.
So yeah, my best advice is to make sure they're well prepared. Once they have that settlement date, that's when they need to start planning. Because I will talk about a scenario that we've actually had. So we have a
Hmm.
lot of clients with settlement issues. For example, let's say a place settles at 12 noon and they must be out, then they get the keys to their new place at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And what we do well is just communicate with the client, because if they've got to be in and out of a place at the same day, we make sure we've got the right plan of action to make sure that move goes well.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so to give you a date, look, I don't re I highly recommend give more than 1 week notice. Like one in that week is, yeah, it's cutting it thin, but you'd like to give, at least a 2 plus weeks to 2 months notice, even a month notice. That's good. But the earlier prepared you are, the better. And obviously, to ensure a stress-free move, I would 100% make sure the customers just 100% packed and ready to go, and that ensures efficiency on the day. So there's nothing worse than rocking up to a move and there's a kitchen that's unpacked and it's not packed and it's all got to go. So that's very, very good when that's all done.
Oh, I think that's solid, to say that, because that brings me back to your pre-packing service. When do you do that service? If someone was to purchase pre-packing, right, and they needed you guys to pack up the house, when does that typically occur? Is that
Yeah, that typically occurs one day before the move. We can have it packed up all within a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Geez, that's so good. So you can
yeah,
actually
yeah,
come into a property the day before and say, yep, I'll get this all done, wrap it up,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then prepare for the next day, obviously, to come back and pick it up.
yeah. That's right. If it's a 5 bedroom plus house, well then, that's where we communicate with the client because then it might need 2 days but
Yeah,
if it's your average, 4 bedders or under, we can do that in a day
that's excellent.
and have that pre-packed. Just depending on what needs to be packed. Most packs are actually 4 hours or under on average, and then your bigger packs can take between the 4 and 8 hour mark, just depending on what's being packed, and that's where we communicate with the customer.
Yeah, nice. And I think one of the questions that I'm so curious about is, those you mentioned earlier, the apartment type of moves or moving someone out or into an apartment. Um, that would be very tedious if someone's in a high rise. I imagine. How does your service kind of like, can you cater to that if someone is moving into those type of spaces?
Yeah, with those type of moves, we just make sure it's all about the communication with the customer, and we make sure that they've booked with their building manager and everything's ready to go. Um, Example regarding lifts, so we make
Hmm.
sure we've got our proper lift bookings in order, um, and the same thing on the other end. So as long as that's all correct, it will be smooth and an efficient day.
No, that's excellent. I really I'm really thankful that you've actually explained a lot of this process. I think there's a lot of things that are missed. Like, I didn't know that you could even do lift bookings in that way.
Yeah, yeah, it's all done through the building manager, and
That
just so that doesn't interrupt with other people in the building.
Yeah, of course. That's so excellent. I think that's a really good tip for anyone that's tuning in. Maybe if they're looking at buying into a unit or a unit complex, but mainly that apartment type of property. Yeah, that's very important to know that that's got to all
Yeah,
be coordinated. So yeah, you're right. Then giving 1 week's notice, especially for that scenario, would be very stressful. And I think
yeah,
that's where
yeah,
you're saying being planned and being prepared ahead of time will make the move less stressful, because a lot of people, we always say, I think, what is it? You know, the three most stressful things or things that cause a divorce are, moving house is one
yeah.
of them amongst other things. And, we don't want to break up marriages. So what's your best advice for someone who's, just found a property, they're going through that settlement, or they're about to, organize their moving situation and they're feeling a bit stressed? What's your best advice to them?
Yeah. My best advice is just to be as organized as possible. In terms of your move and having everything packed, that's really good to be that ready and just all packed, and having everything labeled, so when the movers do arrive, it's just an efficient process. And obviously, having everything set up on the other end as well. So making sure your NBN set up, the power is set up, so you're not having to stress at the other end. And that's something that you'll be able to help the clients with, Joe, with
That's true.
all your services.
No, thanks for the plug there, Jake. I hope that's exactly what we're hoping to do, is help everyone
Yeah,
prepare better. But from your side, if we can have everyone basically ensuring that they've got all their packing in order if they're doing it
yeah,
themselves, and if they're not, talking to you first and getting that help or that guidance at least, and having a chat about what you can do.
yeah, exactly right. And that's what ensures efficiency on the day.
Oh, that's excellent. And my last one here that I wanted to ask is what's, in terms of your client stories, you've been doing this for, 12 odd years now. What is one of the most memorable stories that you have of, where something has gone, I guess hasn't gone to plan, and how have you recovered that situation on moving day, if you can recall anything like that?
Yeah, so going back on actual settlement issues, there was a couple there where we had to be out by a certain deadline on the day. Um, and obviously moving into another property on the same day. So when there is settlement issues and we do have a start time of, between 7 to 8 a.m. and someone's got to be out by 11 a.m. or 12
Mm.
noon, it's really that's and it's a big four-bedroom place. We really do have to have a plan in place, and that's where the communication with the customer is vital. And just to have a plan in place to attack that move and be able to be clear of that settlement date. So that's probably a big one, and to be able to overcome that, because if you don't have a plan in place, a job like that could just blow out. And when it's important for the customer to be out by a certain time, you want to make sure everything goes right.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Jake, I think this has been extremely valuable. I know I've definitely learned a lot more about the value of furniture removalist. I think, like you said, the DIY type of service, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's obviously flaws in the planning. So if you're not planned and you don't have someone in your corner, this is what leads to that ultimate stress on the day of your big move, and that's the last thing you want to deal with. It's already stressful enough. So
Yeah, that's right. It's either, with the DIY, it's either risk it yourself, risk injury, um, risk um, risk damage to your furniture if you're not hiring a professional, or a really, a good professional. You want a good professional to do your move. Um, and yeah, that's basically it, really.
no, it's excellent. Jake, thank you so much for coming on today. I think this was a really enlightening chat, like I said, and I absolutely love your story and how passionate you are about it. I think what rang true to me was how you talk about, the communication is important, planning is important, all these things that, you offer, but also just in general, for everyone listening. I think it was really valuable. So thank you so much for your time and for coming on. I loved having this chat.
Yeah, no problem, Joe. Thanks for having me once again. And it's been great to have a chat.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Whether you're listening on our app or you're listening in one of our listener services like Spotify, I hope you're having a great day, and I hope this chat helped you understand a bit more about the move and what Jake does at Victorian Removals and the great work he's doing. You can tune in anytime. But Jake, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.